Good evening, good evening, good evening. My name is Renee Williams, and it is Sunday, a good day, end of a week. We are on step one. In step one, we admit that our lives had, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction and that our lives had become unmanageable. Yeah, we know about unmanageability, don't we? We know about stuff like that. But anyway, let me open up and give the God of my understanding some recognition. Oh God, thank you for allowing us to be clean. Thank you for allowing us to find our way. Thank you for us for learning how to live without drugs and alcohol. I thank you, God. I just thank you for everything that you do for us all over the world. You have to be a big person to take care of all our prayers and all our thoughts and wants. And I thank you for that. I just thank you for us being clean, for us realizing it's better days, it's good days. And even through the rough days, we still don't have to use no matter what. All right, y'all. Shout out to the ones who celebrating clean time. Shout out to you. Shout out to the ones that celebrating clean days just for the day, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 12 months, a year, and multiples of years. Shout out to you. I thank God for allowing us to know who we are and to know that we don't have to use no matter how it gets or how it might seem. We don't have to use no matter what. Shout out to the therapists, the counselors, the ones that make it possible for us to come in treatment and go in inpatient and come back out with a level head and trying to understanding this disease of an addiction, because it is a disease of an addiction, and you have to take care of it every day, just like we have to clean ourselves every day. We have to take an inventory of us every day. We have to understand that, being clean is the most important thing is in our lives, other than loving on the God of our understanding. And for that, I am so grateful. Hey, Jude, good to see you. Hey, Robin, good to see you. Oh, Robin, when I get off, please call me so my daughter can bring you this stuff. Okay, all right, we admit. I like this step. Before I continue, shout out to the ones that's left behind that had to deal with losing a loved one or a son, daughter, mother, father, husband, or wife. It's very important that we must maintain our sobriety, and knowing that no matter what we go through, we have to deal with, ourselves. Ourselves is the one that got us in the predicament that we was. It wasn't all about the drug. That's only 10%. So basically, it was just basically us. Our behaviors and our way of thinking and our attitude and our self-conscious of knowing what we're doing right or wrong. So I thank God. So good to see everybody on here. The ones that come on later, thank you. God is able, and He's always the head of my house. And I thank you. It says we admitted that we were powerless. Now, what drew us to the point to admit that we were, I'm just going to throw some things out there to get us to a point to why we had to admit it. It didn't say I. Everybody must do the same thing, so we're not alone. Everybody got to do the same thing. We got to admit that we are powerless. Well, if we don't admit that we are powerless, we will continue to keep using. And we had to get to the point that we couldn't beat drugs. There's no way that we could beat drugs at all. It's just no way in the world. We admitted that we were powerless. Why? Why did we admit that we are powerless? Because we watched the wreckage of our mess up, the wreckage of our thinking, the wreckage of our lives. And we had to come to a point to understand that, you know, I'm powerless. You know, and I didn't never see that before. All I wanted to do was use. That's it. That's all. All I wanted to do was just run, hide, isolate, put the blame on other people, get on that pity pot. And I had to find a way to realize that I'm powerless over my addiction, over your addiction. And that brought me to a point to where I know that, you know, the God of my understanding have helped me understand these steps. And these steps is so wonderful to have. Good to see Drew, good to see Latrice, and good to see Robin. Y'all could be doing something else other than listening to me. So for that, I'm grateful. We admit that we are powerless. Well, we had got to a point in our lives that we were doing things to ourselves that we should have recognized while we was doing it, but the disease of an addiction don't allow us to care. It don't allow us to care when we messing up and doing things and ain't on the right track, and we sabotage relationships and friends, and you know, we sabotage a lot of stuff just to get high, you know, just to feel good, you know, that we don't have to think about what's bothering us or what we've been going through and how we've been going through it. You know, I'm going to tell you something about these drugs. You know, that's only 10%. And it's the way we think. It's the way we act. It's what we do and how we relate to our own self. You know, I mistreated me. I don't know about nobody else, but I mistreated me. I mistreated me so bad to where we abuse ourselves. You know, and the disease of an addiction want us to keep on abusing. It don't want us to get well. It don't want us to get better. Things will start happening in our lives, and then all of a sudden, you know, here we come, you know, taking drugs just to ease this pain or comfort us, our own self-will or how we feeling, you know, so we go to drugs, we go to alcohol. You know, I love the 12-step program, but I hate this disease of an addiction, you know, and coming to believe that I knew I had to admit, we had to come to a point in our lives to admit that we are powerless, because you can't win using drugs. There's no way you can be 100% of yourself using drugs. You have to find a way to understand the disease of an addiction. And the disease of an addiction, what they tell us, you know, is conning and baffling, and everything they said is true. We know that our using the drugs caused us to be in places and atmospheres and that we didn't need to be in. And I had to find, I was hard-headed. I mean, you know, most addicts are hard-headed because we kept on trusting our own self-will. We kept on doing drugs. We kept on drinking. We know we got health problems. We know it's causing us mental stress. We know it's causing our anxiety, but yet we still use. And until we find a way to know and understand that this disease of an addiction is going to do what it's supposed to do. You can't erase it. You can't change it. It's going to do what it's supposed to do. It wants you to make sure that you're lost, no hope. You know, you're going to stay this way. You ain't going to change. You're going to continue to sneak and get high. You're going to sneak and isolate. You're going to sneak and get to yourself and, you know, get on that self-pity party. And that's what I did. I can't speak for nobody else. But I know my life had become unmanageable. And why did my life become unmanageable? Hey, Stella, good to see you, baby. Why did my life become unmanageable? I stopped caring. I stopped trying to figure out why I do the things that I do. I had to find out, why am I still getting calls on my phone? And I had to figure out, I had to understand, why didn't you take it off? I'm sorry, y'all. They be trying to act like they know what they doing, but then I'm steady getting calls. I don't want to be bothered when I'm on my broadcast. So I had to learn how to understand this disease. This disease that caused me many problems, much harm. It took over my life. It took over my thinking. It took over my will to even want to live. That's how powerful the drug is once we put it in our body. It takes over. It wants us to fail. It wants us to die. It wants us to lose our mind. It wants us to break every relationship, it wants us to just die. Because that's how I felt. I couldn't stop using. So why did I have to admit, hey, if you don't admit, then that means you're going to continue to keep using. You're going to continue to keep doing what you've been doing. So I had to get to a point where I needed some help. I didn't know how to admit. I knew I was wrong. You know, when I tell people I was getting high and was praying at the same time. You know, but I didn't admit. I didn't surrender. I still wanted some control. I wanted the will to do what I wanted to do. I wanted the will to use when I wanted to, or sneak off when I wanted to, or take my money and go buy some drugs and hide so couldn't nobody see me. See, I understand that. I understand that we get to a point in our life where everything seems to be crumbling. But let me tell you about when you admit that we are powerless over something. Peoples, drugs. We have to get in a place to love ourselves. And sometimes when we become into recovery, and it wanted me to understand that we had to admit that we were powerless. Well, I didn't have a problem so much of admitting it. I had a problem of keeping a commitment. I had a problem because I stopped using and then start back, stop using, start back. But I'm going to tell you something about the God of my understanding. When we learn how to relate and communicate, hey Latrice, good to see you, baby. Hey Caroline, good to see you. We had to find a way to indulge with ourselves. See, ourself is the problem. It ain't the drug. The drug, you know, and I had a problem that I didn't want to admit that when I started getting high, that first time I ever took that first hit, I wanted that same feeling. I wanted what I got from the first time that I used it. And that's why I know drugs is conning and baffling, because it'll make you think, oh, you go buy some drugs and you're going to get that same high. You ain't going to never get it. I can tell you that right now. I chased it for too many years and never got the same high that I had at the first time I used it. Conning and baffling. We admit that we're powerless. Why did I admit we are powerless? I couldn't do it no more. I done messed up. I done turned my bank account to an empty account. I ain't paying my lights. I stopped paying the things that I used to have pride on paying. You know, the drugs was everything to me. I put the drugs before I did God. And that, you know, and it was hard for me to once even say that. But the drug had became my God. I had depended. And then when it told me that we have to admit, we have to surrender, I didn't want to do that, because if I do that, then I ain't got control. I thought I ain't got no control. If I admit that I am powerless over this addiction that I'm fighting, then, you know, I lose control. I thought. But you don't lose control. You gain control. You gain responsibility. You gain some knowledge of taking accountability for our own actions. You know, I ain't got to blame nobody for what I done to me. I ain't got to blame nobody. When I came in, I was so broken that Whatever you told me to do, or whatever you suggested me to do, I did it. We admitted that we were powerless because we can't win. The drugs got in us and we became everything but what we really wanted to be. And I learned that from using drugs. You know, I was the type of person, I would tell a lie in a minute to get some drugs. And when it says you are powerless, what does that mean you are powerless? Oh, you cannot continue to use and think you're going to come out a winner. You just can't. You can't think you can drink a whole gallon of liquor like I used to drink. When you think about how addiction will trick you and think you can drink a gallon of liquor or pop some pills or do some crack cocaine all day, all night. You know, when I did drugs, I did drugs. I didn't let nothing interfere of me getting my drugs. So coming to a point into treatment, you know, when I started hearing these counselors and these people talk, said, we are powerless. I said, why? Who are you? Who am I? Well, I'm a person that's been hurt. I'm a person that this was done to. I'm a person that did drugs and I can't stop. Why can't you stop? What is it about that you can't stop doing something that's going to harm you in the long run? You ain't going to build an empire using drugs. You're going to create other problems in your body and in your mind. So when I came into treatment, I was dumbfounded. I didn't know nothing. You know, when they told me working the first step is a step that you will continue to work the rest of your life. And I had to learn and get it and get into the book. And I had to admit, you know, we, not just I, you, me, them, we have to admit that we can't do this. It's going to create other problems and other situations in our lives. Until we get a grip to knowing that we are powerless over drugs and that our lives have become unmanageable. I heard somebody say, well, my life become unmanageable because I can use when I want to and I can stop when I want to. Well, that's unmanageability right there. When you learn how to stop, you don't start back. When you learn how that you been clean a week, but then you use 3 weeks. So I had to figure some stuff out. What's going on with me? What's going on with us? Why can't we stop using? Why do we depend on something that's going to hurt us? Why do we got to admit that we are powerless over our addiction? Because it's a disease. It's a disease. And until you recognize that it's a disease, it will come up on you at any given time. Your day can be good. You can be having fun. You can be having fun and you can get with the wrong people. Or you can just thinking you on top of the world and all of a sudden you back using again. This is a disease. And a disease, only way we can help the disease is not to give the disease what it wants. And that's our desire to keep using. That's our desire. That was mine. I know I done messed up. I don't need nobody to throw it back in my face. I don't need nobody to tell me that I'm a crackhead, I'm a dope fiend, I'm an alcoholic. I don't need all that. I recognize using, I had became all that. Because everything in my life was unmanageable. It was unmanageable. I didn't have control. I thought I did. I didn't have no control. Got in messed up relationship, let people do things they wanted to. I was powerless over people, things, and places. All that made sense to me. Because I know that I struggle to stay clean. Crying. Waking up crying, getting high. Ain't that a sick mind? Sick way of thinking. Waking up crying. I didn't want to use, but I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know that this addiction was that great. I didn't even know it was an addiction. I just thought I had some control. I can put it down, I can pick it up, or wait till I get broke and then don't have no money, start selling stuff, and then go back and get it. I mean, I did everything to please the drug. I did everything. And the only thing that hurted me is that I never pleased myself. I never pleased myself. I did everything for the drug, everything for peoples. I was powerless over peoples. I was powerless over places and things. I was powerless over my addiction. And I didn't get it. I didn't get it. Some of us don't get it right away. Some of us linger years. Some of us stop for years and then we start back. Some of us what you call do an action, no action. You don't see nobody for years. And I say that because I'm going to say what I mean. I've seen people that I know that thought that was still clean, and I ran up on them and they were high or they were drunk. And I'm thinking, because I don't see you, that you doing pretty good. You are fine. You are good. It ain't always the case. Sometimes we get shamed and don't want to come back because we've been out of the situation. But see, what I learned about the NA program, I love the 12 steps of the NA program because it teaches us we ain't alone. We put ourselves alone, but we ain't alone. There's other people that walk in the same shoe we walk in. There's other people that, because of a use, And another thing, the reason I know that we're powerless, and we have to admit that, because that was the biggest thing that I didn't want to admit. I didn't want to admit that I was an addict. I didn't even want to get up and say that. I thought them people were crazy when I went to meetings and they say, hey, I'm an addict. And I said to myself, now how you going to stand up there and admit something in front of all these people that you're an addict? And I battled with that. I kept going to meeting. I kept doing what, my counselor told me to do. But it was a while before I said and stood up and said I was an addict. Because, see, if you say you're an addict, then that you know what you are. And then that you know that you're powerless. And that you know that you got to admit that that I'm everything that everybody said I was. And why is it so hurtful for me to admit that I'm powerless over addiction? I didn't want to give it up. That was the real key. I wanted to continue to use so I wouldn't have to deal with nobody, have to feel what I've been feeling, carrying all this stuff, the hurt, the pain. I didn't want to deal with that, so I didn't even want to admit. It took me a long time to admit. Yeah, I went to the meetings. I sat in there and heard what you said. I went to the conventions. I didn't want to admit. I struggled with that. To admit to something means that you ain't got no control. And that's what got me. If I admit that I'm powerless over addiction, then that means I ain't got no control. I ain't got no control. So now I need some control. I need to understand what to this admitting. Admitting things that we have done. Admitting things about the addiction. What is it about the addiction that I liked it? Well, addiction, about the disease of an addiction, what I liked about using is that I didn't have to deal with nothing. I didn't have to surrender. It was all my self-will. I didn't have to care who didn't like me, I didn't have to care about nothing. But when I admitted that I was powerless over my addiction, that meant I cared. That meant I found something to hold on to. I wanted to get clean. I didn't want it to sneak and keep using. I wanted to just get clean, to get honest, to get a connection. Why am I so lost? Why am I continue to use every day? Every day I wake up wanting to use. I go to bed I want to use. I took a drink and I'm getting high. I'm doing it all. Dressed up lie. We become a dressed up lie and we get good with it. We dress it up. We fix it. where you don't think something is wrong. You don't really see me, or did I think you didn't see me? Some people see us in us, look at us, they can see. But some people wouldn't address my addiction with me. They just wouldn't. They knew I was using. They knew I was using. But I got to a point in my life, I was tired of faking. I was tired of lying. I was tired of hurting. I was tired of shutting myself down, beating my own self up. I was tired of trying to please everybody else. And if I admit that I'm addicted, I'm powerless over drugs, and that my lives have become unmanageable, I'm going to feel some guilt, because all that time that I thought I was doing everything the right way. I thought drug was my friend. I thought the alcohol was my better friend. You know, I used every excuse to use to get out of my head that I'm an alcoholic, I'm a dope fiend. I used everything. I just kept running and kept running, kept sabotaging friends, sabotaging my family, holding on to garbage, not dealing with the garbage, not dealing with the pain. And once they told me to work, my sponsor told me to work on one step. And she didn't even move off of that. We stayed on that. We stayed on that step over a couple of years before I even went to step 2. And we had to be for sure that I'm sure that I know that I am powerless. And I am powerless. I'm powerless over everything now. Now that I understand what surrendering is, and understanding that the God of my understanding that still took care of me when I was in my youth. And now that I'm clean, sometimes the wreckage of your past will come into your clean time and try to detour you back. And I had to pay attention to that too. Sometimes it'll come in your life at a greater time when you are clean and you're trying to do everything right. Something is going to come in to sabotage your being, your thought, your thinking. And I had to understand that, you know, unmanageability is not good. Not good for me. Unmanageability is not good for me. Because, hey, Laquita, good to see you, baby. Unmanageability for me is like giving up. I don't give a doggone. I don't know. You can have that picture. You can take that picture. Just give me some money. I need some alcohol. I need some drugs. You know, I don't like being in myself without drinking and using. Because if I don't have nothing to drink and use, then that means I'm in a turnaround. I'm thinking about everything. I'm just turning around. I couldn't control myself unless I had some drugs. Or be drinking, pissy drunk. Thinking I'm making better decision and good decision. But all the time we abuse our body, we abuse our mind, we abuse our soul. All because of one more hit, one more pill, one more. It's always just one more. You know, if I can just get one, I'm fine. That's a lie. That's a lie. I had to find out for myself. I didn't believe what nobody else said. One is too many and thousand, never enough. Oh, I played that in my head along, because I would take one and think I would be fine, and then that one led to 2, then that 2 led to 3 or 4 days, then that 3 or 4 days last a week, and that week lasts into months, and then that month lasts into years, and next thing I know, you know, I was a full-blown addict. I was addicted to everything that made me feel good. If it was cough syrup, it made me feel good. Pain pill made me feel good. Crack cocaine made me feel good. Anything that I wanted to put in my body, I didn't care. That's where the unmanageability come in. Unmanageability about your thinking and how you think and why you thinking like that. And I had to learn something. It's a disease. Why do they call it a disease? Because it never goes away. And the reason I say it never goes away, let me show you what I mean. I mean, when I went down, I had 3 decades, and when I went down to bury my mother, and I had 3 deaths, all at back to back. My mother, my son, and my boyfriend. And I remember through each one of them cycles, I had to keep telling myself I'm powerless over my addiction, because the urges tried to keep coming back. So people can, I don't care. People's talking about, oh, if you got 3 decades, 4 decades, you'll never think about using, or you won't even have the thought. I don't know what kind of brain they got. But I've been in situations to where when pain afflicted me, and when pain got in me, when I was driving, Satan told me, well, if you just got a drink, you can handle this going to bury your mother. But I had to know that was the trick of the enemy, because it wanted me to lose at a bad time in my life. It wanted me to think that I was still okay, to where I can go and take one. You can't play tricks with your own mind, and I mean, you just can't. You might can play tricks with somebody else's mind, but you can't play tricks with your own mind. And I had a lot of guilt that I didn't address. I had a lot of hurt that I didn't want to address, and that's why I kept using. And I didn't know that until I got into the root of what this step means, that I got to admit that I'm powerless over any circumstances, not just addiction, over any circumstances. Losing my mother, I'm powerless over that. Losing my son, okay, admitting that I'm powerless over drugs. I know I can't take drugs. I'm going to lose. I'm going to fail. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to go into the worldly life again, and I'm a pick up unclean friends, and I'm a sabotage myself, and I'm a start letting anybody come in. Anybody shouldn't be able to come into your life. Now I see it. Now I understand it. It's a price you pay when you let people come into your life and detour you. Some people was doing good, and then they start hanging out with people, and they come into their life, and then they find themselves, why am I back using again? Because we have to admit that we are powerless. We have to always stand on that. Why do we have to admit we're powerless? Is because unmanageability comes in. As soon as you realize you done pick back up, you starting the unmanageability again, over and over again. It's a setback, but it's a get back too. Because you can get back even if you mess up, even if you relapse. I always tell, when people call me and say, Renee, I used last night. Okay, the first thing I want to know was, why did you use? Why? What happened? Why did you use? Because you was in a good place when I seen you. You was doing pretty good. Well, my son got shot, and this and that, and they went on. I said, okay, but still, why did you use? Because, see, what the program tell us, no matter what happens in our life, no matter what circumstances come, we have to always admit that we are powerless. And I found that to be true. It says we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives have become unmanageable. Well, how did you know had I not been using, would I had to pound my car and never got it back? If I had not been using. But because of my using, I pound my car for some dope and I never got it back. I was so drunk that I signed your title and never got it back. My life was unmanageable. I didn't pay my rent. My life was unmanageable. Everything that I was doing before I started the use of drugs, I was unmanageable. Anytime you don't want to even wash your face or brush your teeth, and the first thing you think about is that you want to use, you want to get high, that's unmanageability to me. Anytime you don't wipe your butt and you know it'll stink and you know you got to be clean, that's unmanageability. Unmanageability means when you don't manage things the way you normally did when you wasn't using. And because I was using, my life had became a circus. It was a circus. I would wake up getting high and playing my music and dancing and smoking and drinking and thought I was on top of the world, you know, and I found out, ooh, I'm a good addict. Oh, I'm a good addict. I can save some money. I got some money stashed, and before you knew it, that stash of money you had, that stash of money gone. Everything that I liked in my house was gone. Unmanageability to where you can't even count on yourself to do right now, because you haven't surrendered. You haven't did anything. You don't even know about the disease. All you know, you are addict. You ain't studied about the disease. You don't know how it comes up on you. You can be good. And I know now. So when I get in my feelings or get in my world or something drastic is going on, I have to stay connected to the God of my understanding. I have to do things. I have to play my gospel music. I have to do whatever works for me. Whatever works for you, you have to do the same thing. Because the main thing you must realize that you cannot use. You powerless. Why do we have to be powerless? Because we can't do great things using drugs. We can't become a good teacher. We can't become a good doctor. We can't become a good mother. We can't become a good prayer warrior. We can't become nothing using drugs. It clogs our thought. So when you ain't using, my life had become unmanageable because I let it. I accepted it. And I dealt with it. Yeah, my life messed up. You ain't got to tell me. I know every time I go to bed at night, I know I did some things that I shouldn't have did, but I didn't care. The drug told me that it was my friend, and I became his friend, and it was going to look out for me, you know, but it lied to me. It betrayed me, and I had to accept. That's where the powerless come in, is that if you waiting on something that's going to harm you to get better, it never will. I'm better now. I think better. I do better. I take everything seriously. I always put the God of my understanding first before I do something. You know, I didn't have nothing to look up. I had a mother that was my hero. I let her down. You know, but see, about mothers, a good mother learn how to forgive you and love you in the midst of. My mother loved me in the midst of me stealing that money from her. Crawling on the floor. That let me know I'm powerless. See, unmanageability came in when I crawled on that floor to steal that money out of my mama's breast and she was asleep. That was unmanageability to me, because Renee, you know better. You know, if you got to get to the depth of where you take money from your own mama's breast and go down and get high, that's unmanageability. Clogs all your good thinking. I'm so grateful to know that I don't have to realize that it's okay to be powerless. I realize that now. I'm okay with it. I'm powerless over the way people do me. I'm powerless over the way I see things. I have to deal with it with a clear conscience of not putting no drugs in me ever again. Hey, Blanche. Friend Blanche all the way from Memphis, Mississippi. Memphis. Good to see you, baby. I had to learn that. I had to learn. Sometimes we want to accept that, you know, I'm clean, but, you know, I'm set in my ways, and my ways will, hey, I was set in my ways too. I wanted to get high every day. I wanted to go play mind games on men's. I wanted to, thought I was the best player. And got played. I realized I got played. Because unmanageability set in where I couldn't focus on nothing. Everything became a disaster. Wouldn't go to the kids' game. Or had to lie to make up that. While I was sitting in the car getting high. See, stuff like that let me know that my life had became unmanageable. But I never admitted that I was powerless over my addiction until I had somebody to help me understand the disease of an addiction. And a program came in and they welcomed me. They never judged me. They accepted me. They didn't put me in this atmosphere or put me over there. They all accepted me. That made me feel good. That made me want to stay. Coming into the program have taught me that we all know we are powerless over our addiction. And your life will become unmanageable. Mine's did. And I'm sure everybody else, I'm sure Robbins did, I'm sure Stella did, I know Blanche did, I know Latrice did, Caroline, I know you had to find a reason to get well, you had to find a reason to stop using, because you know everything that we was doing in our youth was not right. I mean, I did some bad things. And I thank God that the God of my understanding forgave me. Because, see, I can tell people some things, but in some things I'm just going to take to the grave. I can tell my sponsor a lot of stuff, but it's some things I wasn't going to tell her. And still ain't told her. And she been my sponsor over 3 decades. And I asked myself why. I said, because I'm in a good place. I learned how to deal with the exceptions that I messed up. I wasn't a nice person. I was a person that loved everybody, but I didn't love myself. We become, when we get to the point that we have to admit, and I remember going there telling me, well, you got to admit that, we have to admit that we are powerless. Why? What's the whole purpose of it? Well, the whole purpose that if you admit that we are powerless over addiction, we would never use again. That we would never use again. And our life would never become unmanageable again. That's the whole key. When we admit to something, I admit I was wrong. I admitted that I lied and said you did something. When we can admit to our wrongdoings, we're on the right track. When I started to surrender and started to admit that I'm powerless over addiction, my life became better. Because then I started going through my life and I started picking people that was good to be in my life. I had to let go of a lot of people. A lot of all my peoples and friends, they used, they drank, they got high. So when I came to admit that we are powerless over our addiction and that my life had became unmanageable, it's managed now. Why? Why would your life become better? Why would you start managing better? Because you're not using. When we're using, the addictive part takes over. And it wants us to mess up. It wants us to hurt ourselves. It wants us. But I found out it wasn't just a drug. I had to learn that. And then when they said it's only 10%, I mean, that ain't nothing. 10%, it's enough to continue you to get high if that's what you choose. But what, the other 90% is me? The other 90% is you? The way you think, the way we perceive to do things, the way we look at things, that's us. 90% of it was the reason why I wanted to go get high or let the dope man come to my house. That 90% was my thinking, my will, my purpose. Until I found a purpose to live, then I can understand why they said we admit that we are powerless. We can't do nothing with drugs. Nothing but mess up. Nothing but hurt ourselves. Nothing but lose. So I come to a place to admit that I am powerless. Anytime I was doing the things that we was doing, anytime you was doing the things that we was doing, and kept on doing it. Even though we know we was hurting, even though the lights is off, even though you didn't pay your car note, even unmanageability was set in. And unmanageability ain't just talking about one thing. That's just unmanaging your life. Not the concept of you wanting to do better. We always in the use of using. So we didn't know what wanted to do better was, because our mind we was using all the time. And I learned that as long as I don't put it in me, I got some control. I understand what that means. My life would never be unmanageable ever again. And so far, in these decades, so far when you clean, and I've been clean, my life is manageable. I can think better. I can make better decisions. I'm powerless over addiction. I'm powerless over people. I'm powerless over places and things. Yeah, that sounds good to me. Let me take all that in so I won't forget it. I won't forget that I'm powerless over our addiction. I can't win using. We tried it. We went through it many years. We gave our life to drugs, alcohol, every drug, every alcohol, every pill, every drug. I did it. Only thing I told y'all that I never did one time was heroin. Now I don't know why. I'm a bad mamma jamma, but I don't know why. That heroin was the way I would see people stressed out, and it was just too big for me. I was scared of that one. Why you wasn't scared of the rest of it? My sponsor asked me, say you were scared of heroin, but why you wasn't scared of crack? Why you wasn't scared of alcohol? It took over your life. You was doing everything the wrong way, the wrong reason. And I just told her, I just seen some people that they thought they could fly. And they say heroin make you think that way. She laughed at me. Because I know all drugs make us think different. I don't care what we drink. I don't care what we do. Because I was in a place in the world to where I thought I had everything in control. I had everything going right up under the influence of drugs and alcohol. That itself is sick. That itself, I would tell myself I'm good. I ain't got to pay this bill. They ain't going to turn it off. But then, a couple months, they turn it off. Unmanageability. And it didn't sink in until I started to go to meetings. I started finding myself having a good foundation to make me understand what this disease is all about. And as I kept going to meetings, I kept wanting to come back because everything a person was saying, it was me. I went through that. Your face is different from my face, but that was me. I was in that situation. And then I kept going back and I heard somebody say, stay. Don't leave. Keep coming back. You're never alone. And I was never alone. I'm still not alone. I know that I can't use no more. Just because you got clean time, just because you work so hard to keep your clean time, you can lose it. Just like you got it, you can lose it. That's why I always got to stay up under the care of the God of my understanding. When I'm pushed too hard, Satan will still try to come in. When I know what I'm doing is right. I got feelings. I stopped using. I got real feelings. We stopped using. Y'all stopped using, so our feeling is more important now than it was when we was up under the influence of drugs and alcohol. So I got feelings. I'm never going to make you think that you better than me. I worked hard to know I'm in a better place in our lives. We work hard. We stop using. We go to meetings. All our friends is good peoples. They don't use. They don't drink. We surround ourselves. We have a destination of where we're going. And where we're going is people that don't use. So my foundation has been good all this time. And I'm going to continue to keep it that way because I admitted that I was powerless. And I can't use no drugs. No matter what excuse I might say or how I might feel or I'm down in the dumps. I can't use no matter what. Deal with the feelings, Renee. You've been dealing with them all this time. But and don't think addicts don't get hurt. Don't y'all dare think y'all don't get hurt. I know y'all get hurt. The ones who stopped using, the ones that admitted that we are powerless over drugs and alcohol and that our lives don't become unmanageable, we understand what unmanageability is. We understood that we are powerless over our addiction. But, you know, people still come to us and try to push us off our rocker because they know we're not using no more. Sometimes I think some people try to push us to that point. But I ain't never using again. And I done been pushed and pushed and pushed. But I just found a new way to live, a new way to think, a new way to do when I'm up under that pressure. It's that pressure that made me keep using. It's the pressure of the pain and the hurt. It was the pressure of you neglecting me, not wanting me. It was all them things that I used behind that I would never use again. Because I know I'm powerless. I cannot use drugs. If I use drugs, y'all won't see me. I'll be gone and I'll be dead. And that's the truth. You won't see me no more. I'm that addict that just I don't come back. When I go and disappear, I go and disappear. I'm too scared now. They got this powerful stuff they got out here, and this is still bad. The crack's still bad. Adenol still bad. Alcohol still bad. Heroin still bad. This fentanyl, oh Lord, is that bad? That's double bad. That's double bad. So I had to figure it out. Do I want to die or do I want to live? Do I want to go into a program that's going to benefit things for me? It did. I stayed in there. I'm still in there. I go to meetings when I don't want to go to. I admitted something. I had no choice. Well, I put that back. I did have a choice because it's free will. But my choice was I can't afford to use again. I can't afford to lose everything I lost. And the one main thing that I lost was me. My mind. Me. I lost everything, every good thing, every nurturing thing. I lost it behind the drugs. So that let me know I can't use ever again. I'm powerless. I don't even want you. You're corrupt. I don't want you. You made me go through a lot of unnecessary things along with my accountability of the way I think and the way I act. So my character has become better. My behavior is so much better. All because I surrendered, I admit it, I know I can't use again. I don't even want to use. That's not a thought that regularly comes up because I don't let it. When I admit it, I admitted that I did something wrong. I'm surrendering, God. I know I can't do that. I know I did this. I know I did this. I know I've said sorry to you multiple millions of times. But God, I got to admit, for me to admit to something is very rewarding to me. Because I was the type that didn't want to admit to nothing. I didn't even want to admit that I was a crackhead. I didn't want to admit that I was a stone alcoholic. I didn't want to admit that I was a prostitute. I didn't want to admit nothing that was uncomfortable for me to say. But my unmanageability stepped in the way. And don't never let nobody detour y'all to make you feel worthless. I ain't gonna never let that happen again. Because when I was using, I got high on you making me feel worthless. I got high on you causing me pain. I ain't getting high for nobody. I admit it. We admit it. Why did we admit? We saw some things. We went through some things. We understand the unmanageability in our life that came with us using drugs. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm so proud of each and every one of y'all. Let me tell you why I'm proud of y'all. Because most of y'all I've seen when you came in. Come on, Blanche. Stella. Laquita. Caroline. Jew. Most of all, If I didn't see you sometime or another, I watch how we all came in alike. Our destinations of what we were and what we've been in was the same. And I'm proud of each and every last one, even for the ones that's going to come on later, even for the ones that's coming on. Yeah, life is good. You're supposed to have fun and do good things. But I keep my life simple. I really do. I keep my life really simple. I'm okay being to myself. I'm okay being alone. But I'm never alone. I got y'all. I got other peoples. I got my friends. I got the NA. I'm never alone. But when I say I'm okay being alone, I'm better alone in my own space at my own time. Therefore, it's a good place. And I'm proud of all y'all. Proud of the years Blanche got. I'm proud of Stella. You know, we went through some things to get to this point. But we have to always, one thing everybody on here know, that we are powerless over our addiction. And that your life will become unmanageable. I am so proud of y'all. I tell everybody, thank y'all for all the prayers for my cousin. I went to see her yesterday. She's so sick, y'all. She's so sick. I had to go out there in the hallway. I started crying. She's so sick. A stone in her bladder. Where the stone is in, it put me in a place to where she never been sick. She said that I'd never been sick. Her bladder is the size of a stomach. It done swole. They can't even remove it. But see, God can. See, I know God finna do some great things because He did it in your life. He did it in my life. And the impossible, the unthings that we was going through, He did it for us. And He can do what no other man can do. That's what I told her yesterday, and that's what I'm going to stand on. You know, the sight can mess you up. Oh, my God. I had to walk out the room because I didn't want to get into the sight, the way it looked, the way it felt. So I had to remove myself, and that's what I do now, because the sight can take you to a different place in your life with the God of your understanding in it. So I don't get caught up on the sight. I get caught up on the faith of what God can do. We only clean because of the God of our understanding and the 12-step program, because God is all in the 12-step program. So therefore, if I was safe, I wanted to get it. We admitted to. Why did I have to admit? I had to admit to somebody. I had to admit that I am powerless. Why? Why won't you? Why you want to admit it? Because it's a problem for me. I can't use no more. Every time I use, I do stupid stuff. My life becomes so unmanageable, I lose it all. That's why they say we have to admit, we have to go back and check some things, do some inventory, and look at ourselves and see what part that we play in, and we played in all parts. We played in all parts. I know I did. I put it that way. I did. I'm so glad I don't use. I'm so glad even when I wanted to use, I didn't. I'm so glad when the thought came in, it was just a thought. I moved it. I'm so glad that I can admit that my addiction is too powerful for me, and it's a disease I have to take care of the rest of my life. You know, I got health problems because of the disease of an addiction, but God's still helping me. He's still taking care of me. He's still figuring it out. He's still letting me know no matter what happens, Renee. And there's some third balls going to be shot at y'all. Some storms is coming in your life, but you got to learn how that you are powerless over the storm balls. You are powerless over the addiction. You are powerless over people, places, and things. But one thing that you got for sure, you ain't used. Through it all. Through it all. Sometimes I go out there and I be outside and people's, ooh, that weed, that weed, that weed. Ooh, that's the most stinkingest weed I ever smelt in my life. I don't know what they smoking, but when we was coming up, that weed didn't smell like that. That stuff stank. We was coming from the hospital. Where was we at? Was coming from out of the hospital, and I went past this guy, and he just weed that it stank. And I said, "Oh God, thank you." I have to always tell God, hey, Angela, good to see you, honey. Hey, Michelle, good to see you. I had to understand the disease of an addiction. I had to admit. I was tired of lying. I was tired of faking. I was tired of falsifying who I really was. I was tired of telling you I'm okay when I wasn't okay. You know, I was thinking, I saw this, and every time I see it, I play it over and over. You know, the two little twin girls, I can't think of their name, they had this little show. And she was on somebody's show. And Tiara, that's her name, Tiara, the two sisters, the twin. And this lady was asking her, how are you? How are you? And she said, I'm okay. Bust out and start crying. That was us. We okay. I play that over and over. I saved it in my message. I play it over and over. Somebody asking you, how are you? And you say, I'm okay. And boom. The evidence of you not being okay. The evidence. And the reason I like that and I play it over and over, I don't want everybody to ever say, are you okay? And I say, I'm okay. No, what I said, I'm making it. I'm in a good place. But when she said that, she just bust out and started crying, and she was, you know, got caught off guard. Because why? She released. She told the truth. And that's a reminder for me. We must tell the truth. On our feelings, on our disease, we must always know who we are. Don't ever let nobody put you in a character or a place in your life to where they think they know who you are. I worked hard. We worked hard to get our lives together. We moved different places. We got married. We got a degree. We went to school. We became better parents, better grandparents. You know, I'm looking over our lives and I'm like, God, you ain't let nobody down, because we all done made it over. We don't use, so we all done went through some change and went through some challenges, but guess what? We never picked up. That's the whole part about that I love about admitting that we are powerless over our addiction, because no matter what happens, we know we didn't use behind it. I ain't never going back. I don't ever want a friend like that. A disappointment that I had, that I allowed in my life because of my behaviors, my thoughts, my action, my self-will. We in the world now where the world is kind of messed up. But see, I don't look at the world like that. I look at God. I keep my head to the care of God, because I don't want to get caught up in all the ugly things and don't pray that we must get out. That's me. That's me. I ain't gonna never stay like I was, where unmanageability came into my life. I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't even think right. I couldn't even pay a bill right. I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't even be a true friend. I couldn't even lie right. Everything I touched crumbled. I don't ever want to be in that predicament when I'm living a lie, and a dressed up lie at that. I don't ever. We paid the price. I know we paid the price. I know we paid the price, because we still go to meetings. We still see people. We still connected. You know, so we paid the price of the unmanageability and went through the worst of the worst. You know, I went through the dark doors. I went through the dark closets. I slept in attics. I slept in garages. So ain't nobody got to tell me your story and my story is different, but we still remain the same, because we are recovering addicts, and we know we went through something to get to where we are today. And I'm in a good place. I'm going to stay in a good place. At least I'm going to continue to ask God to help me stay in this good place. You know, unmanageability. I was thinking unmanageability. Unmanageability, where you let everything go. You don't care no more. You let people just do things, walk over you. You don't keep, you sweeping around everybody's front door but your own, and you letting everybody walk over you, and you let everything and every thought and every word that somebody say to you cause you to get off your track. But see, what I do, I learn how to manage my thinking and learn how to control what I say. And sometimes I have to move away. Sometimes I have to stay away. Sometimes I have to keep a closed mouth, and so the wrong words won't get out. I'm still human before I'm anything else. So I have to keep my mind on the God of my understanding, and help him still help me figure out why do I feel certain ways, certain time. But I don't use. It was a time we go pick up. Soon as somebody made us mad, there we was gone to the race. But we admitted that we are powerless. And when you admit that you are powerless, you will never use again. I admitted it. I surrendered to it. I was glad I didn't have to cover it up no more. I don't want nothing that don't favor me. And drugs didn't favor me. My life was so unmanageable, where it's manageable now, and I want to keep it that way. I thank God for him never taking his hands off of us. Every night, every day, I thank God for the ones who's struggling. For the ones who's struggling, God, get a hold to them. Do them like you did us. Let them see some things and go through some things. When I was using, I thought I could never make love without weed, because I was a weed head. And God had to show me different. God had to show me that was your thinking, your self-will, your accountability to think the way you wanted to think, because that was a lie. That was the drug. I mean, when I go back and I pop out and say different things, it's because it comes to my mind. It's because I was in an unmanageability world in my life. I thought different when I was using. I didn't care who I hurt. I didn't care what I done. I didn't care what you said. All I wanted to do was get one more. And I heard them say in the meeting, 1 is too much and 1,000 is never enough. And I was just thinking, that is so true. And I thank God for the 12-step program. I give a shout out to the 12-step program, because if I hadn't never found the 12-step program of the NA, where it was 12 when I came in, it was CA, AA, and NA, and that's all up under NA. And I did it all, so I'm in the NA. I did everything. I couldn't separate the alcohol. I couldn't separate the cocaine. I couldn't separate the pills. It was all connected. It's all a drug. Don't let nobody tell you it's not. It's all a drug. And I'm so glad that I found a way to admit that I was powerless. I had to learn to admit that. I didn't even want to say the words. Being honest. When I first came in, I didn't want to surrender. I'm thinking I'm going to run this little game in here and still hold on to this, and I'm going to go to the meetings. But once I started going to the meeting, I started hearing people's like me. People say they surrender. You must surrender. And then I started realizing I liked it going to a meetings. I saw a change in me. I said, oh, it's 90% me. I'm messed up then. I was totally messed up. But I'm so glad that we all had to cross the same path to admit that we are powerless over our addiction, and that our lives were unmanageable. You heard what I said, were. Because once you stop using and you get your life straight, your life becomes manageable. My life used to be unmanageable. But I'm standing on something that I didn't stand on before. And that's having a connection with the God of my understanding, and for that I'm grateful. You know, we are on, you know, I thank God for each and every last one of you. I don't have to see you to pray for you. All I have to do is remember your names. And I take my prayers and my thoughts to the care of God real seriously. You know, because I know what he brought us through. I know what he gonna take us through. And I know we're gonna have some more storms to come into our life. But we gotta be prepared. And we gotta know that God is who he say he is. And he's a friend of ours. The program, God, I need all of it. Thank God for y'all. It said next week we'll be on step 2. We come to believe that a power greater than ourselves will restore us to sanity. That's, you know, I get a little overwhelmed with this step because it did something to me when I had to learn the power greater than myself and who that was. And I can identify that restored. He did a lot of restoring in our lives, in our minds, in our thoughts. So I thank you. I thank y'all for listening to me. May God continue to bless you on this Sunday. Starting off another week. Stay safe. Be careful. Out here in this world is wicked right now. And I thank God for you coming and being a part of my process. And I thank God for me being a part of my own process. You know, and I thank y'all for loving on me. You know, I thank God for me loving on everybody. You know, it was a time, even if I didn't like you, I didn't love on you, but now I can love on you. You know, forgiveness. That's the best part of recovery, forgiveness. Forgiving ourselves and forgiving others. We might go through a process getting there, but at least you got there. Now I'm closed. Would God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom, you heard me, the wisdom to know the difference. I thank y'all, Michelle, Blanche, Drew, Laquita, Stella, Angela, and for the ones that I cannot see that come on early, later, thank y'all. Because nothing is going to detour me or stop me from doing this because it's working. Y'all can't probably see it's working in all areas, but it's working. People's is getting in. People's is coming in. People's is getting their lives together. People's is stop wanting to struggle so hard. And I must continue to do what God asked me to do. This wasn't me. He asked me. He told me this is what I need to do. So I'm going to continue to do God's will. Not mine, but God's will. God bless you. Have a good evening. And y'all stay safe. Stay safe.